Join me and Renjie as we explore this fascinating district, uncovering stories and flavors that make Kampong Glam truly unique. So Renjie, here we are in a newer setup.
I know.
The last episode was about the Singapore River.
Yeah.
And we busted a myth that I had, right? Busted something that I had where it was more like, what is the real city center of Singapore? And you did mention Kampong Glam, which is not the city center, but would you say the traditional city center?
I would say the historical city center of Singapore is Kampong Glam, right?
Yeah.
Now, Singapore is located in a part of the world called the Malay Archipelago. And historically, it's a cluster of islands and, countries that used Malay as the language, the lingua franca. And so we also use Malay historically, traditionally, at least the indigenous people of Singapore. And the Sultan of Singapore had his royal quarters, so his palaces and his personal sort of grounds in a part of town called Kampong Glam, which is just east of the city center. So if you think of where Marina Bay is, and then you go eastward, you'll hit it within like 10 minutes pretty much, right? Singapore's not that big. But it's the royal quarters of Singapore and very much the heart, the beating heart and soul of what Singapore used to be as a settlement.
Okay, so what do you get to see in Kampong Glam now? And I'll add another question to that. What is a good time to go to Kampong Glam? Is it during the day or at night?
So I will say that the one thing that you can still see very, very clearly in Kampong Glam is the royal quarters. And so you see the Istana, which is the old palace, the presidential palace, right? The Sultan's personal grounds, which is a modest-ish building. It's not like a palace in the way that you have
compared to the other royal palaces.
Yeah, all the ones that we have in Singapore. But no, it's a modest-ish building that's converted now to the Malay Heritage Centre. So very much worth a visit. But next to the Istana is the Sultan Mosque. Right?
Okay.
It's a beautiful structure. I'm sure you've seen it, and it's got this beautiful classic sort of onion dome. And the most beautiful time to go see that, to answer your question, is actually at sunset, because that's when you still have light in the sky, but then they light up the dome very beautifully, and you see it's just a gilded dome, with sort of very, very fine architectural features to that as well.
And there is something related to how the community has gifted this, right?
Yes.
What is that?
So again, at sunset, if you go and you look closely at the base of this golden, very gilt dome, is a black band. And if you look closely at that black band, it's just circling the entire base of the dome. You see little discs. Right? And these are essentially the base of glass bottles. And this was essentially a way, when the mosque was being built, a way for the local community, so local Malays who lived in the area, to contribute to the building of the mosque, as a way to, get them to be part of the community, get them to be part of a very important monument, the Sultan's personal mosque, right? And obviously a mosque for the community around that as well. And I always think that's just such a spectacular detail to pick out, and it glitters very nicely at night as well. So yeah.
Now, Singapore has a lot of Malay influence, right? But tell me about the food. If the Malay influence is seen out here in Kampong Glam, how's the food there?
So the Malay food, I will say, is, to me, in my mind, one of the most spectacular cuisines of the region, and again, certainly one of the most underrated cuisines of the region. It's very much built upon this idea of the different spices and the herbs that you find in Southeast Asia. And again, maritime Southeast Asia is just so rich in biodiversity, including some of these very, very strongly perfumed herbs, strongly perfumed spices. And a lot of the spices that we use in Indian cuisine today historically came even from Southeast Asia, right? And so you have a lot of curries. Kampong Glam is actually one of the best places to try Malay food in Singapore. And a place that I always end up bringing friends to is this place called HJH Maimunah.
HJH Maimunah.
HJH Maimunah.
Why is it so special?
It's special because they serve a type of Malay dish, I guess, a meal called Nasi Padang.
Nasi Padang.
So Nasi Padang is essentially a rice and curry kind of a dish. And you go there, you essentially point and choose from anywhere between 50 to 75, I think, different types of curries, dishes, and so on. And it's just such a wonderful way to experience the variety of flavors. It's usually spicy. Some dishes have like a sweet soy ketchup sauce from the Chinese influence, so it's got this beautiful sort of rich darkness to it. But it's always very fresh, it's always very perfumed, and just very, very savory, which to me, again, that's just so iconically, the flavors of Malay cuisine as well.
I think when there are so many dishes to pick and choose from, I think going in a group is probably better.
That's the pro tip right there. So this is how I know that you are a true eater. Is
I guess that's why we get along, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Feasting, having friends just so that you can eat more. I think that's always a good idea.
So there's also Haji Lane, right?
Yes.
What is that, Arab Street as they call it?
So Haji Lane and Arab Street are two neighboring streets. All the streets in this area are named after, places in the Middle East or very, very historically Arab concepts. So you have Baghdad Street, you have Muscat Street, you have Oman Street. And Haji Lane is a very tiny lane, really, of historic shop houses, but that has over time been taken over by really cool, quirky, contemporary boutiques. And so it's really like, when I was growing up in the I won't reveal this, it was very much hipster central for a time, and still is today, because you end up having things like independent designers, you have accessory stores, you have really quirky home design, kind of homeware, boutiques. You even have things like, F&B, but also studios where you can go get your photos taken like from an automated photo booth, have it print out, right? Like a neoprints kind of thing, but like a new version of that. So it's incredibly vibrant, especially on the weekends. Always a great time to go visit, and also just such an interesting juxtaposition with the Sultan Mosque, which is just right around the corner.
Awesome. So I guess that's Kampong Glam. That's east of Singapore.
Yes.
Let's go further east. Let's head towards
Far east.
Yeah, like Changi.
Yeah.
And I'm a plane enthusiast, right? Like I was waiting for us to do an episode on Changi. But that is probably a little later. I want to talk about Jewel at Changi.
Yeah.
Right? So should we do that episode next? And if yes, give me those three words or one phrase.
The three words that I would associate. See, this is always the hardest part, where I have to think on the spot. So the three words I would associate with Jewel is light-filled.
Light-filled, okay.
Okay, that's two words. Light-filled, we'll accept that. Just breathtaking.
Breathtaking,
truly breathtaking. And the third one I would say is just souvenir galore.
Oh, souvenir galore. Okay, let's take that and let's come back and do an episode on Jewel at Changi.
Amazing.